I've worked
Mm-hmm.
with three clients basically, HSBC, Visa, and currently I'm working with Wells Fargo. So here actually I'm working on various scans like vulnerability scans, app adherence scan. So there is a third party tool like SCP tool, SCP policy service tool. So there actually it stores the count of all those vulnerability details. So we are just fetching the details, and based on that we are allowing the changes to go for deployment or not. So this project we are working upon, and prior to that I was working with HSBC where I was working on banking and financial domain projects. So we have made use
Mm-hmm.
of Spring Boot, microservices, Oracle SQL. So these things we have made use of.
Mm-hmm.
And actually we have been given with the roles like whatever clients are assigning us a task, so we are discussing them with the technical architect team,
Mm-hmm.
and then we are coming up with a solution like which all data structure, which all things needs to be implemented, and then based upon that we are implementing based upon the story sprints.
Okay.
So stories are assigned, so we have to complete in a sprint or so. So like that the process goes.
Okay. Okay. What is the Java version you are using?
Yeah, we have made use of Java 8, Java 17 also we have made use of recently in Spring Boot 3.
Okay. How good you are in Java 8? How can like how much you rate yourself on the scale of 5?
Around 3.5 to 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about Spring Boot?
Yeah, Spring Boot also I'm learning. So I've implemented under 4 years I have worked upon Spring Boot, but still I'm learning new
Okay.
things. Yeah.
Okay. How much you rate yourself in Spring Boot on scale of 5?
Around 3.5.
Okay. What about microservices?
Yeah. So microservices also around 3.5 to 4.
Okay. What about SQL?
Yeah, I've worked upon Oracle SQL and MySQL. So no SQL
Hmm.
actually I didn't got much chance to work upon. So
Okay. Oracle SQL, how much you rate yourself on scale of 5?
yeah, around 3.5 to 4.
Sorry,
Around
5.
3.5.
Okay. What about ORM tools? Like, have you used any Hibernate or JPA or anything?
Yeah, we have made use of Spring JPA.
Mm-hmm.
So
How much you rate yourself on scale of 5?
yeah, around 4.
Okay. What about RESTful web services? Are you using any RESTful or SOAP or what?
Yeah, we have made use of RESTful web services. So yeah, we have
Okay.
made use of like REST endpoints we have written. So whatever requirements are coming, we have
Mm-hmm.
to create that endpoint, and then we have to process it through a business logic. So those flows we have.
What are the functional interfaces? I mean, you have used in your project, like, and Java it provided some predefined functional interfaces, right?
Hmm.
So, which functional interfaces you have used in your project, and
Yeah, so
can you give it details about that? Yeah.
yeah, we have made use of like comparable comparator interface. We have made use of. We have made use of predicate as well as function as well. We are using because whenever we
Mm-hmm.
are making use of a stream, so arraylist.stream.filter, so it will accept predicate type functional interface. So based upon that, it checks the boolean value condition. So and we have made use of map as well. So that is also accepting functional interface. So that
Mm-hmm.
also we have implemented.
Lambda expressions in Java 8.
Yeah, lambda function is actually a functional way of writing a code. So it is functional programming. So it actually reduces the boilerplate code, and it reduces the redundant code which you are writing again and again. So a lot of lines of code can be reduced in one single line. And if we are
Mm-hmm.
not making use of class separate class, and we are making use of lambda function, then at runtime actually it will not create multiple jars. So it reduces the number of jar file creation as well.
What is a method reference in Java 8?
Yeah, so with the help of method reference, actually we refer to a particular method in a class. So it can be
Mm-hmm.
accessed with the help of static way or non-static way. So if it is a static method, then we can
Mm-hmm.
directly access that method with the help of class name, like with the help of colon colon operator, like class name colon colon that method name. And if it is a non-static method, then we can have to create the object, and then we have to access that particular method. So like that we can make use
Mm-hmm.
of.
Okay. What is optional and how can it be used?
Yeah, actually, with the help of optional class, it is a new feature came in Java. With the help of which it overcomes null pointer exception problems. So actually, prior to that, there were a lot of issues coming with null pointer while checking the logs and all. So to resolve that issue beforehand only, we are fetching the data from database and we are directly checking whether that data is empty or not. So optional actually returns the empty data, and based on that we can check like if it is present or not. So if it is empty, then its present will be false, so it will not go inside, and we can give some statement in the response. Or else, if it is present, then we can print the data. So there is some inbuilt methods present within that, with the help of which you can throw exception also, and you can see like if data is present or not. So there is certain methods present in optional class, like optional dot if present or else, or and there is optional dot if present or else throw. So this type of methods are there, which helps us to handle.
Okay. What are terminal and intermediate operations
Yeah, so these are
in
the,
Java 8
yeah, actually these are the
in
operations.
string?
Yeah, these are the operations actually
Yeah.
works on streams. So intermediate operations are the operation which occurs in an intermediate way. So and terminal operation is the operation with the help of which it terminates the entire flow of stream. So actually stream is lazily loaded. So if you are not writing terminal operation, then intermediate operations all is of no use because it will not get executed.
Mm-hmm.
So it's necessary to write the terminal operation so that all intermediate operation gets executed and it returns the data. So there are certain set of data intermediate operations like filter method is there, then map operations are there, flat map operations are there. These type of things are intermediate operation, and terminal operations are
Mm-hmm.
there like collect method we can make use of for each method. So with help of this we can terminate the operation of stream.
Can you share your screen? We'll do one coding exercise. After that, we'll continue the discussion. Yeah, I'm able to. I have this array of strings. So just I have pasted in chat. Yeah. This is the array of strings,
Mhm.
and the below one string word equal to spring. So I need to find out like how many times that spring got repeated in that array of strings. Can you write down a program in Java 8 for that?
Okay, how many times the spring is repeated, right?
Yeah, in Java 8, can you write a code snippet for that? Pseudo code. Can you explain the logic behind this? Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I'm doing a stream with arrays. Actually, it is a
Mm-hmm.
string of array. So we are doing arrays dot stream over this array, str array. Then we are collecting on it, and then we
Mm-hmm.
are grouping it actually. So whatever string values are coming over here, the words, it will get the data as it is, because function of identity does like whatever input is coming, it will give the output as it is. So one by one, it will fetch the data, and then it will count it, like how many times that particular.
But it will take each one as a string, right? I mean, each one in the array as a string. So Java Ruby struts, it's come as a collection dot grouping by. So there is no Java Ruby struts in the array dot stream. So then it will grouping by one only. Like Spring Java only one, Spring Python only one. Then how will you get the frequency for that? Do you know the concept of flat map?
Uh, yeah, flat map actually can make use of to flatten it. I meant to say, can we use flat map here before applying this collect method, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can use.
Have to make use of like arrays dot as list, and then we can pass the x, because we have to convert this
Okay.
each string to
Okay. Can
list.
you write that code like whatever you're telling now? Just write that this pseudo code.
And the way which I had written before, that was not correct. I have written.
That is correct for only a single string in the array. Like suppose only start spring like that. If we have only single word in the array, then
No,
we'll get.
no, in flat map I'm
So
using here. So here actually we are converting it into a list, and then we are doing stream. So we are
yeah,
flattening.
yeah. So then how will you get that count for that spring? I mean, you are iterating, right? Okay,
Yeah, I've written
okay,
it after it. So after flattening it, then we are counting.
okay, okay. Now understand. Yeah. Uh, okay. Other than Stream API, have you used any Java features in your project? I mean, any datetime API or anything you have used?
Uh,
Nashorn or anything?
I have made use of optional class. I have made use of completable feature also once, and
Okay, what is the use of completable feature?
yeah, actually, with the help of completable future, it's a new way of doing the parallel programming. So, with the help of which we can
Mhm.
send a request, and then it will wait for the response to come. So, in case of future, actually, there was a problem, like it has to wait for infinite period of time. Like there was no threshold, like how much time it will take to get the response. But in completable future, we can add a threshold with a message, like if till particular this time the response doesn't come, we can return the default message accordingly. And then with the help of completable future, we can actually group multiple futures together. We can do chaining of multiple futures, so that we can do. And then we can
Okay,
handle exceptions also in completable futures. So for those things, completable future we have used. It's actually good than future.
okay, okay, okay. Comes to Spring Boot. Uh, what is the what are the different annotations you have used in Spring Boot as part of your project?
Yeah, so we have made use of like at the Spring Boot application was there. So it contains configuration, enable auto configuration, and component scan. And then there is multiple other
Mm-hmm.
annotations like at a controller level. There is at the REST controller there. Then at the post mapping is there. At the get mapping is there. Then at the request body is there. At the path variable we have used.
Mm-hmm.
So those things
Mm-hmm.
at the request param we have used. Then at the service
Okay.
layer, there is at the rate service annotations, the stereotype annotations we have used. Then at the rate auto wired we have used to auto wire the data of
Mm-hmm.
repository in a service, and then service to controller. Then in repository we have made use of at the rate repository layer. Then within that there is at the rate query annotation for writing the queries there, hibernate queries. And then in the entity level we have made use of at the rate entity over the class, then at the rate table, then at the rate id
Mm-hmm.
to define the primary key for that particular table and to map it. Then
Okay.
at the rate generated value for auto generating the IDs. So those things we have used.
Okay. What is the difference between at the rate configuration and at the rate component annotations in Spring Boot?
Uh, Actually, at that component, it basically checks for all the classes for which the bean needs to be instantiated at runtime, and then
Mm-hmm.
at that configuration, actually, it's a separate configuration class which we define with at the rate configuration, and there we can actually create our own bean at the method level, and then we can add our own configurations in that. So in that way, it will be used. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Explain the use of at the rate enable web security.
Okay.
Have
So
you used that annotation?
yeah, in actually in Spring Security it is used. So whenever we are writing,
Mm-hmm.
first step is we have to add dependency Spring Security, and then we have to create a configuration class, and then we have to write at that configuration for that class, and then we have to write at that enable web security. So it enables the security mechanism for the endpoint. So it actually authenticates like that particular user is valid user or not. So for that sake, we have to apply the web security for that.
Okay. What is the difference between application dot properties and application dot YAML?
Yeah, so application or properties actually has a key value pair format which has both string, but in application or YAML
Mm-hmm.
we can have key string and value can be anything, like it can be object, it can be boolean value, it can be string value, anything it can be there. And in
Okay.
application or properties there is for everything we have to write, we have to repeat it, like spring dot data source, spring dot data source dot host, spring dot data source dot url, everything we have to write it again and again, we have to repeat. But for application or YAML there is a hierarchical structure format we have to maintain, where we have to write spring dot data source one,
Okay.
and we have to write others just one word, url, host, username, password, like that.
Okay. How would you externalize configuration in a Spring Boot application?
uh, what I didn't get you.
Have you used any externalized configurations in Spring Boot application?
Externalize means we have to exclude any package or any other thing you're telling?
No, no. Externalize means like the configuration is not inside the application. I mean the properties or YAML file.
Hmm.
Have you used anything like that?
Uh, we have made use of properties to get the data using accurate value, or else we can have configuration class for that to add any separate configuration. Apart from that, I didn't did anything.
Okay. Alright. Like what is the role of Spring Boot starter dependencies?
Uh, Spring Boot starter parent, that particular thing you are asking.
Yes.
Yeah, so actually it is present in pom.xml file. So it basically checks for all the version for Java, for Maven, all configuration, all versions are in sync or not, and all the dependencies that we are putting it up in that pom.xml, all dependencies are aligned with that version or not. So it actually checks for all the dependency versions and configure Maven and Java version, and there's
Okay.
plugin also is there in that. It
Yeah.
checks
What
for
is auto configuration in Spring Boot?
At the rate auto configuration, it basically automatically configures all the dependencies in the class path. So we don't have to manually go and configure for the dependencies. Rather, if we are just giving the dependencies in the pom.xml, it will automatically download the dependencies and put it in the class path.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What is the role of at the rate entity annotation in Spring Data GPA?
Yeah, actually, with direct entity annotation, we tell to Spring Container that this particular class is for field mapping. So it actually maps the particular class with the table data. So whatever table is there, it will map that table name. It will map the field name with the column names of the table. So basically, for mapping purpose and to tell Spring Container that this is for uh, table creation and mapping part. So for that purpose, it is used. It is
Okay.
uh,
Okay. How do you define a repository interface in a Spring Data JPA?
first we have to add at direct repository annotation, and then we have to
Mm-hmm.
define interface for the repository, and then we have to extend JPA repository interface, and then within
Mm-hmm.
that we have to give the table table name, and
Okay.
then we have to pass the data type of the primary key.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What is the use of at the rate Spring Boot test annotation?
Uh, Actually, with the help of added Spring Boot test annotation, we define that this is a test class and this needs to be taken for a configuration as a test configuration class. So it checks at runtime like what all, and we have to provide accurate test also over each and every method so that it will check for
Mm-hmm.
expected and actual value. So as all assertion happens in that.
Okay. What is Spring Boot dev tools and like how can it improve development efficiency?
Yeah, Spring Boot Dev tool actually it's a dependency that we can add in pom.xml. So with the help of which it with whatever changes we are making, let's suppose Tomcat server is up and running, and then we have to make some changes while debugging. We found out some issue came, so we have made the changes. Then after that, we don't need to stop and restart the server. It will automatically reload that particular Java file. So
Okay.
auto reloading it helps.
Okay. What are the common use cases of Spring Boot actuator?
Spring Boot Actuator is basically used for measuring the health metrics of the particular REST endpoints. So there is certain
Mm-hmm.
URLs for that, like slash actuator slash metrics slash metric name. If we provide a metric name, based on that, it will give the status whether that endpoint is up or down. Then we can check the environment variables, environment variables as well, like with slash env
Mm-hmm.
slash actuator slash env. We can find like how many beans are created with slash actuator slash beans. So these things are there.
Okay. Okay. Like how do you create a simple microservices with Spring Boot? As you told, you are working with microservice.
So
How do you create a simple microservice?
yeah, actually, we are first we were having a monolithic application. Then actually we are dividing into separate microservice because there were a lot of functionalities involved within them. So let's
Mm-hmm.
take and consider an example of like a Zomato delivery. So in there actually there are multiple functionalities involved in it. So first functionality is
Mm-hmm.
getting the food prepared. So food microservice we can prepare. Then for person is doing the payment, so payment microservice we can prepare. Then the data should get notified to customer as well as to the owner, means who is managing Zomato. Those notification microservice we need to prepare, and then for Zomato boy, the delivery boy, that separate microservice, and then we can make them communicate with each other so that it becomes more reliable and more fast and efficient. So we have to make it more
Okay, how
scalable.
will you implement the communication between these microservices? Suppose I have two microservices, how will you implement the communication between these two?
Yeah, so actually there are two ways
What
of
are the
doing the communication. First is
mm,
synchronous way of
mm,
communicating, and second is asynchronous. The synchronous way actually we have made use of REST template. So we have to auto wire REST template class, and then with the help of exchange method, we can pass the URI and the request object, which will contain the data which that
mhm.
microservice endpoint is accepting. So after that, we will get the data from that microservice, and then with the help of there is a method called get body method, and then we can check the status. Then if there is enough functionality required, we can make use of body and we can use it. Another way is we can make use of RabbitMQ or Kafka. So we can send the data asynchronously over a Kafka broker, and then there is a topic,
Mhm.
and within the topic actually it contains the actual message. So consumer, there is a pub sub model, like publisher will publish the message and data will be stored in the Kafka topic, and then there will be like a listener will be there, who there is a consumer who is going to listen it. So there will be consumer group attached to that, and for producer actually we have to give the topic name, and then for listener actually he's a consumer, so we have to write at that Kafka listener, then he will consume the data whatever we are sending it. So like that we can do, or we can make use of at the rate async annotation as well, so that way we can
Mm-hmm.
increase the performance. Yeah.
Okay. What is Spring Cloud and how does it relate to Spring Boot? So have you used any Spring Cloud in Spring Boot?
Actually, I didn't got much chance to work on cloud basically. So there were separate team
Mm-hmm.
who were working on Microsoft Azure cloud. So they were doing
Okay.
configuration and proxy settings and for moving the data from on-prem to cloud. So those things, there were separate team who is handling that. For cloud, I
Okay.
think we have to add some dependency for the cloud, and then we have to
Mm-hmm.
create a separate class to configure that, and then we can make use of
Okay. When it comes to Spring Boot exception handling, so
it.
how do you handle exceptions in Spring Boot?
Yeah, in Spring Boot, actually, we can make use of direct REST controller advice, and then
Mm-hmm.
within that we can create a method, and over the method we can write direct exception handler, and then
Mm-hmm.
we can define separate exception. Like we can create global exception handler. We can create it over there. We can create our own error response, and then we can return it
Mm-hmm.
from there, return new response entity. We are setting the error message, error description, error ID, and what status code you want to set. Those things you can set it there, and we can return it. So wherever you want to throw that in the main class, you can throw that with type of throw new, and that custom exception we can throw. So like that we can make use of in Spring Boot.
Okay. Have you written any custom exception classes in your project?
Yeah, I've created our own custom exception class for Spring Boot also, and normal exception class also.
Can you elaborate the process? How will you create that custom exception classes?
Yeah, so let's suppose I'm creating one new class, like class custom exception, custom new exception, that will actually extends
Mm-hmm.
exception class, and then within that we will create
Mm-hmm.
a constructor. Within constructor, it will accept the data, like what message you want to throw, so that you can pass it there, and then we can write super. Within that we can pass the message. So this is one of the constructor, and there are multiple constructors as well. You can pass the message along with throwable exception, or you can throw exception. So anything you can do. There are three constructor overloading, that is the one of the constructor overloaded method we can use here to throw exception along with the message. And from the main class where we have to throw, within the method definition, under certain condition we
Mm-hmm.
can throw, like throw new that custom exception with the message we can write. So
Okay.
yeah.
How do you create a RESTful web service using Spring Boot?
RESTful web service. Yeah. So first of all, we need to create one controller class for that. So and we have to
Mm-hmm.
annotate with that direct REST controller, because it contains controller and
Mm-hmm.
response body. Then it depends upon like what operation you want to do. Like you want to get the data, or you want to save the data in DB, or you want to update data. Based on that, we have to use the annotation. So there are separate annotation for separate
Okay.
functionalities. So that we can make use of with request mapping for that, and then we can create our own method in controller layer, like public response entity with that DTO layer with response. Then whatever operation we want to do, then we have to do system designing, and then based on that we have to set the method name. Then we have to pass the, if it is a post request, then we have to pass at the request body, and then we can pass the actual DTO object which you have created to take the request. Then we have to do some validations on that. So either you can create a separate validator package and do validation there and use it here with validated over a class, and within the method we can write valid over that field request detail. So like that we can do, and then after doing the validation we can directly call the service layer by automating service layer in the controller, and then we can write business logic
Mm-hmm.
in the service layer, and then we can
Okay.
automate repository, and then we can write the query required to fetch the data or save the data into.
Okay. What is repository in Spring Data JPA? Have
Uh,
you used
Actually,
any
there are
repositories?
We have made use of JPA
Mm-hmm.
repository basically. So repository is a supermost interface actually. So it starts from CRUD repository, then comes the paging and sorting repository, then comes JPA repository, and then comes the main repository. So this is the hierarchy. So we have made use of JPA repository in our projects.
Okay. So what is the difference between CRUD repository and JPA repository?
Actually, CRUD repository contains only CRUD related operations like create, read, update, delete. But if you want to make use of certain other type of operation like delete data in batch or something specific
Mm-hmm.
to that, then JPA is having certain other kind of functionalities as well with that and build methods, which is not present in CRUD repository.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
If you want to delete data in batch, we can make use of JPA repository.
Okay. Okay. How do you define a custom query in Spring Data JPA?
We can make use of added query annotation. Then within that, we can write our own Hibernate query or native query, SQL query based upon requirement. And then, yeah, so this is the way we can make use of. And then from the method level, we can pass the query parameters. What all parameters we have to pass, like added param. Then we have to match the field name with whatever data has been passed in the query. So those fields should be matching. Then it will fetch the data.
Okay. What is the use of modifying annotation in Spring Data JPA?
And direct modifying actually it is used with update operation. So whenever we have to
Mm-hmm.
do DML operation with database like saving data or updating data or deleting any kind of thing, then we are basically writing a direct modifying over repository layer along with a direct query. So basically it manages the transaction state of that
Mm-hmm.
query flow. So whenever if there is any
Okay.
exception is there or any issue is there, so it will handle that operation there.
Okay. What is the purpose of named query annotation?
With the help of that, we can create our own custom queries, and along with that, we can pass the fields so that it
Mm-hmm.
matches based upon certain condition. Like you have to filter or query data based upon ID, name, or salary or anything. So we can pass it there,
Okay.
and then we can put it at the name query and add that query in that.
Okay. What is the difference between fetch and load in Hibernate?
Actually, load.
You mean early and lazy loading?
Uh-huh. So load actually it loads the data and it returns the proxy object rather than the real object. But fetch actually returns the
Mm-hmm.
real object. Uh, if
Mm-hmm.
data is not there, then load will return null, I think. But fetch, if
Okay.
data is not there, it will return exception, like data not
Okay.
found.
Comes to collections. So what are the collections so far you have used in Java?
We have made use of list, we have made use of set,
Mm-hmm.
map, list, set, map, these things we have basically used.
Okay. Can you give explanation for this hash map internal implementation?
Yeah, so basically, internal implementation of hash map means whatever key we are passing, so it basically goes to
Mm-hmm.
hashing mechanism. So whenever it goes to hashing mechanism, it generates 16-bit hash code. So, but the size of the hash map is only 16. So 16-bit integer
Mm-hmm.
is not be feasible to put it in a bucket. So we are actually doing the modulus with the size of the hash map so that the index value lies between 0 and 15, and then after calculating the index it will point to that specific bucket in the hash map, and then it will load it
Mm-hmm.
there. So for every key it will calculate the index and it will store it in a specified bucket. So there can be a chance like for multiple keys same index gets generated. So in that scenario hash collision will happen, and then it will actually the data gets stored in the form of nodes which contains the hash code value, the key, the value, and next node's address. So initial node will contain next node address as null. But whenever there is hash collision happening, then the data will be stored in the form of linked list. So one second node address will be stored in the previous first node. So like that, the two nodes will be
Mm-hmm.
interlinked with each other as a doubly linked list. So like that, all the nodes will be connected. So yeah, so the put operation is like that, and while get operation, it will be like get of key. So map dot get key. So it will try to fetch the particular value for that key. So so there can be a
Mm-hmm.
chance like the particular key is present at nth node of the linked list. So for that, time complexity in worst case scenario becomes O of n, but in general time complexity is O of 1 in best case scenario. So after Java
Okay.
8, it has been reduced to O of log n because it has converted to red black tree. Yeah.
Okay. What are the methods present in object class?
Object class, there are multiple method. There is a hash code method, to string method, equals method, uh, wait method, all three overloaded wait methods. Then notify all,
Mm-hmm.
these methods are there.
Okay. Okay. Have you worked on any multi-threading?
uh, I didn't got much chance, but I have made use of added async annotation in our project so that it doesn't delay the response, so that we have made use of.
Okay. What is the difference between set and hash set? I mean, hash set and tree set.
Uh, Actually, in hash set, it doesn't maintains the insertion order. And for tree set, if we are using it internally, making use of compare to method, so it actually compares the data internally and it sorts it. So if you want to data in a sorted fashion, we can make use of tree set.
Okay. What is the use of garbage collection in Java? Like, what is the difference between Java 8 and before Java 7? Have you found any difference for garbage collection? Or
Yeah, actually for garbage collection, there is an introduction of meta space actually. So previously,
okay.
like all the data were getting stored in the heap memory. So it was there were multiple times where out of memory error were happening because all the objects are getting stored in perm gen, which were lying in the heap memory only. So to reduce that error to occur, so there is a meta space being created which is not a part of the heap memory. So now that error gets reduced. So
Oh, okay. Have you used any design patterns in
yeah,
Java?
yeah, we made use of singleton design pattern, factory design pattern.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
basically
What is
these
the
two.
use of package design pattern?
So basically, factory design pattern, it creates a layer of abstraction so that the client doesn't able to see our actual business logic. And in this, actually, we are creating an interface which contains certain functionalities, and we are allowing the classes to implement only those methods which is required. So class will implement the interfaces, and then there is a factory class, and then it will accept the type, like what type of data you want, so that the real logic doesn't get exposed. So based upon the instance value, so based on the type, so we will check like what all type you want. So if the type is matching, then we are returning the object of that. So like this way we
Okay.
can implement.
Okay. What are the HTTP methods you have used in RESTful?
They are like post mapping, get mapping, put mapping,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, delete mapping.
Okay. What is the difference between put and patch?
Put mapping, actually it updates the records in the table for all the column,
Mm-hmm.
means that particular record means every column data will get modified. But with the help of patch, if you want to modify only certain columns, then it's good to go for patch.
Okay. What are the different response codes you have seen in RESTful?
We have seen like 201 is created,
Mm-hmm.
status 200 like okay, then 404
Mm-hmm.
which is URL not found, then
Okay.
500 internal server error, then 401 for access restricted.
Okay.
What else?
Have you seen 500 series codes
500 series
anytime?
code. Only internal server error I have seen, but there are others also.
Okay. What about 300 error codes? I mean 300
300.
series. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't seen much, I think.
Okay. Okay. What are the design patterns you have used in microservices?
Yeah, in case of microservice, we have like there were issues with distributed transactions, so data were not getting rolled back. So to resolve that issue, we are making use of like Saga design pattern. So within
Mm-hmm.
that, there are like multiple microservices which they themselves are not getting communicating, but they will be like a broker for that, where each microservice is sending data to that particular broker, and then from there it is sending the data back to another microservice, and like that communication happens, and there is an event get triggers like success event or failure event. So it actually marks the data just like a visited flag. So whenever there is microservice one calling the microservice two and it's executed properly, so it gets marked as success event. And wherever at some point it gets failed, so failure event gets triggered and all the past changes gets rolled back. So it is actually very
Okay.
very much beneficial. Okay.
Okay. Have you came across the circuit breaker design pattern?
Yeah, circuit breaker design pattern is being used when, let's suppose A microservice calling B, B is calling C, but the
Mm-hmm.
response from generated from C to B is not happening. Like it's due to server is down, or microservice is down, any due to any reason, but it should not wait. The main thread should not wait. So in that scenario, we can have circuit breaker design pattern for fault tolerance. We can have that retry attempts, like how many times you want to retry to call that microservice C. So if we have put it as three, then three times it will try to call. But if every time response is coming as 400, then it will, after third attempt, it will give the default message to the microservice B like the service is down. So like this, the existing flow will not get stopped, and other functionalities will work as it is.
Okay. What are the logging tools you are using in microservices, like in your project? For
Uh,
for logging, what are the tools you are using?
Yeah, we are using log4j, and we are
Mm-hmm.
importing that log4j, and then we are creating the reference for that, like logger factory dot get logger, and then we are giving the class name. Then after storing the reference in that log variable, then we are calling like log dot warn, log dot error, log dot debug, log dot info. Those methods we are using to trace the actual issue. Like let's suppose some issue came in production, so for tracing purpose it is beneficial.
Okay. How do you implement security in microservice architecture?
Yes, for security
I mean, what
actually.
are the security? Yeah,
Yeah, so we have
yeah, go
to
ahead.
make use of proper authentication feature we have to implement, and we have made use of actually JWT authentication. So it actually accepts the login ID and password, like user ID and password, and then with the help of public access token key, it gets the data and it sends the data through API gateway to authentication server, and from authentication server it generates another token key for that particular request, and API gateway actually the data is being passed as a request header, and then it will actually API gateway level it matches the token which was generated during user ID password login, and which is generated now, and then it will try to validate the signature, like to confirm that this is the actual user which has been trying to log in. So if the user gets
Mm-hmm.
authenticated, then it goes to a dispatcher servlet like front end controller, and then it goes to that specific endpoint which is being redirected to. Like that, it will go,
Okay.
and response will go back again. So
Okay. What is the use of JWT tokens?
yeah, it actually enhances the security level of the REST endpoint.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a token based authentication happens here. So whatever public access token key will get generated with the help of which we are calling our endpoint. So internally at API gateway level, it matches that to validate the user, and then it allows the process to go further and call that endpoint controller. So it basically enhances the authentication to increase the security level. It's a JSON web token,
Okay.
so token based authentication. It happens.
Okay. Have you used comes to SQL? Have you used any indexes in SQL?
No, I
Do
haven't
you know
got
what is the use of
chance.
index?
Yeah, index is basically
Okay.
used over columns so that the performance gets improved. Like if there are a lot of records coming at once, so we can make use of indexing so that it increases the performance.
Okay. How do you get the highest salary from an employee table, which has employee ID, employee number, and salary?
We can make use of select max of sal from employee. So like that we can get.
Okay. Suppose I want to fetch what are the different departments in the table. I mean, department table, department ID, department number, and department name.
Mhm.
So how will you get that
You want
different departments?
so you want different department names.
Yeah, different department names.
Okay, so we can select it like select department ID, comma department name from department, and you have to group by department ID so that we can't see the duplicates.
Okay. You mean what is the function you are using?
Uh, Group by clause we have to use on
Okay.
department ID and the department name so that it groups on that and it removes the duplicates so that if you don't write group by then it will
Okay.
show multiple times.
Okay. What is the use of distinct then?
Uh, yeah, distinct actually it removes the duplicates as well. So if you
Mhm.
are using distinct, it removes the duplicate records.
Okay. Do you have any experience with joins?
Yeah, we have made use of joins.
Okay. Suppose I have department table and employee table.
Mm-hmm.
So in each employee table, I have employee ID, employee number, employee name, and department ID I have. So
Mm-hmm.
in department, I have department ID and department number, department name. So then how can you map these two tables and fetch the details from which employee belongs to which department name?
Yeah, we can join it with the help of inner join, like select emp.id, comma emp.number, comma emp.name, and then
Mm-hmm.
emp.department ID from employee emp, inner join department dptd on department ID dpt ID equal to department dot dpt ID, like that we can do, and then we can fetch the data.
Okay. Do you have any exposure with procedures and functions in SQL?
No, seriously, actually, I haven't worked on that procedure part.
Oh, only DML operations and all.
Yeah,
Okay. What is the use of drop and delete?
so with the help of delete, we can delete specific records in the database.
Okay.
The prop, I think it marks like which data required to be deleted.
Yeah, I'm done with that.
Okay.
Do you have any other questions?
Yeah, so basically means what type of project is currently being worked upon as of now?
Here in Genpact, we have different projects.
Mm-hmm.
So currently, I don't have the details of the project actually. Like
Mm-hmm.
you can check with the human resource team,
Okay,
like
okay.
whoever you are coordinating.
Mm-hmm.
Currently, I don't have much details on that. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Means what tech stacks it is getting used?
yeah. Tech stack is Java, Spring Boot, microservices, database, like this kind of tech stack only.
Okay, okay.